Okay, so we are live, and Sarah, thank you very much for being part of the symposium. And like I said, David is here, and he has yesterday said so many times that Sarah's presentation he's looking forward to. His was excellent. I told you, excellent presentation on the traditional dispute resolver and the modern, and getting that together, and the hybrid model. So from here onwards, you have to introduce yourself. It's your presentation. I'm on mute. Whenever you call me in, I'll only come in there. Perfect. And then at some point, if you are continuing, we'll ask Mehmet at that stage for extension of time. Let's see how it goes. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much, Vikram. It's good to be here, to be able to share my experience from this side of the world. I'm excited to have been invited to participate in this symposium that brings together so many different people. I'll just share my screen so that we can be able to move together.
Yeah. You are going to be introducing yourself. Please, yeah, we have to know you.
Yes, thank you very much. So today I'll talk a little bit about mediation in our culture and tradition with perspectives from Kenya. It might not come out as traditional or cultural as perhaps you're expecting, but stay with me and come with me. So the way I'm going to run through my presentation is I'll do an introduction, then have mediation in Kenya, then look at some of the cultural issues, and then I'd like to think together with those of us who are here today, what next? So just to start in my introduction, I have this picture to my left-hand side. That is me. It's a few years old, but yeah, when I had a slightly different hairstyle. But introducing myself, I have on the next to it a photograph of a black marlin. So introducing myself, I just want to bring together who Sarah is. So this is Sarah. I like to smile, of course. And down there in that photo, I say that I'm a parent, I'm a poet, I'm a peace builder. And why we have that black marlin is because mediation is something I sort of just chanced on. Just, I was walking, and I the way you're walking and you meet someone and you think, this is a very interesting person, and you begin to develop a relationship with it. And so that's what happened. I was walking in the field of marine and environmental education, and just working with the communities at the coast, and teaching about the environment, about fisheries, how communities can be able to engage with their resources, benefit from their resources. And then I came across this person called mediation, and in the beginning I didn't know what is all this? And then I just thought, what an interesting person they say. So this is how my relationship with mediation came up. And for me, as a mediator, I think what I'd really like to do, I think mediation is a very good thing. And from my background in environmental education, marine communication, I think mediation is very useful for communities in just being able to plan how to use their resources, how to share their resources, how to be able to avoid conflict. So it's something that we in the community, in the environment, in conservation, in sustainability can be able to use even before, we have the active conflict come up, because we have now a lot of conflict in environmental issues, in environmental matters. And as we continue to increase, population continues to increase, we expect, of course, that there will be more and more of those conflict issues. So for me, as a mediator, my ideal place to be is to be able to introduce more and more people in conservation and environment and fisheries and marine to this friend of mine called mediation. So introducing Kenya. Kenya is in Africa. It is at the eastern side of Africa, one of the countries in the Eastern Africa, bordered by Somalia, Sudan, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Tanzania. We have just perhaps over 50 million people in the country, very many different tribes speaking different things. We have different languages, sorry. We do have English and Kiswahili as, official formal languages that are used. A good number of us speak either one or both of those. We do, of course, again, have other places that are high in illiteracy. I myself am based in Mombasa, which is a beautiful coastal city. And that's where I do my, my marine and fisheries related stuff. So the other thing that I believe perhaps you have had Kenya talked about is about the big five. I of course mentioned that because I mentioned I have this environment thing about me. So we have the big five, and of course Kenya is the country that has a national park in the city. So Kenya is a good place. I encourage you to come and visit us. So just a little bit about mediation in Kenya. Like I said, for me, mediation was this friend that I met, just, and I think it could be the same for quite a number of people. The Court Annexed Mediation Program began in Kenya in 2016. And I think as a result of that, the Court Annexed Mediation Program, of course, the whole idea was to be able to increase access to justice for, the wide populace. We, of course, know in many, many countries, we have many people going to court. Many country courts have got backlog. So certain countries have, of course, adopted mediation as a way of being able to address the large number of matters that are in court. So in Kenya, we had the Court Annexed Mediation starting in 2016. It has grown over the years. 5 years later, I think we have more than perhaps up to about 14 stations where we have the Court Annexed Mediation carried out. We do have, at the moment, I would say more than 800 mediators who are accredited by the judiciary to be able to serve within the Court Annexed Mediation Program. A recent article in one of the newspapers indicated that more than 14 billion has been released back into the economy, which is about 127 million US dollars has been released back into the economy as a result of, the Court Annexed Mediation, initially starting as, in the commercial division and, family. And those are the main areas that, mediation has actually is being used a lot to serve, because of course it is used to address, the civil matters that are in court. But like I said, this is something that I am very excited about and trying to promote within my own work context, which I think is something good, because like I said, mediation can be used across so many different areas. So if you're a doctor, if you're a nurse, if you're, in IT or whatever it is, then I think mediation is a good friend to be able to have. So looking at, mediation in Kenya and, the cultural issues, the questions that I have, I ask is, have we always had mediation? And, I just look at, in my own family, looking at my children, and I think, parents, perhaps mothers, who in some contexts tend to spend a lot more time with the children, have practiced mediation for a long time. Many times then, in my own experience, I have my children perhaps arguing or fighting over something, and I will tell them, you guys, can you sort this out? And, I just sort of take a back seat. So that actually is, a form of mediation that has existed in, I would say, in, culturally. When I look at, different communities, my own community that comes from right across Kenya, near Lake Victoria. I'm sure you've heard of Lake Victoria. It's one of the biggest lakes in the world. Then we have had, mediation. When people have issues in the family, then, they come either before the elders or, whatever it is, to be able to speak about whatever issues that they are facing, to be able to get assistance in addressing those issues. Looking at it perhaps critically from the understanding of mediation that I have now as a way of resolving conflict, where it is the people themselves who are empowered to be able to address their own conflict. I would say that perhaps in the cultural or traditional context, then it was not mediation per se, as we understand, where the parties then now decide, you know, this is how we are going to address whatever we have come across. I think it tended to work more in the form, for example, of elders. You come before the elders, you state your case, and then the elders give guidance on this is what is going to happen, which maybe more or less would fall towards, you know, some sort of evaluative mediation where, you know, you sort of look at these are the issues, this is the person who seems more right or wrong, and this is the one who has been aggrieved, and therefore the one who has been aggrieved needs to be, you know, compensated in a particular kind of way. So I would say that we have had, you know, mediation in forms that are perhaps not in the same way as we understand it today. Has it changed? Yes, I think, you know, mediation has changed. And, you know, just looking at what is it that people were doing then and what is it that we're doing now? And the other thing that has come up, I mean, for example, if you look at the Quota Next mediation program, then you realize, for example, that although we call it mediation, then there seems to be a very big focus or emphasis on being able to arrive at settlement, as opposed to, of course, we do have the advantages that come with, you know, mediation, being able to restore the relationships and work on the relationships and be able to continue. But you realize that, you know, in that, the focus seems to be, how do we settle this? How do we finish this? Which sometimes may not necessarily, you do, of course, sort of seem to address what is on the plate at that time, but because you don't address the deeper issues or the root issues, some of those things don't go away. They tend to come back. And, you know, looking at, you know, from that context, again, what are some of the issues? My own perspective in terms of looking at, you know, mediation as we have now, some of the issues that I feel exist within mediation that I would, in a way, say are perhaps cultural in a way, in the way that people are brought up and the way that people live. A good example, I would say, is the issue of shame. When conflict arises in community, for example, sometimes there's, you know, of course, there's the person who has been aggrieved, the person who was doing their grieving, and in a family context, you know, there's issues of, you know, family honor, keeping the family name and things like that. And sometimes then people say, you know, we need to work on how do we sort this out without making it, or for example, without bringing in more community, more members of the family, if it's a family issue, or more members of the tribe or community. And because of that, then that aspect of perhaps covering the shame, we don't address, you know, the root issues. And I think when handling mediation, it's very important to be able to understand what exactly is happening. If we don't go that deep in being able to comprehend why do we have this problem, and we just want to cover the problem, we just want to solve the problem without understanding what is the problem, why is it coming about, then of course, you know, we have issues that I would say, because people don't want to say so and so was bad to me, people don't want to say so and so did something that is not right, then now we have mediation, but it is in a way what I would refer to as superficial. And, you know, just giving it, again, just a local sort of example, back home where I come from, in my rural area, then we'd have, you know, thorns. You know, back home, people don't always use shoes and all that. Then sometimes you step on a thorn and it goes inside your foot. When a thorn goes inside your foot, then you have to open it to be able to remove it. That whole aspect of being able to open the thorn to be able to remove it is very painful. It takes time. And I remember myself as a child sometimes then, you know, not understanding that if this thorn is not removed, perhaps, you know, the foot is going to swell, you get the area getting septic. I mean, it gets a lot worse. then sometimes I wouldn't even tell my parents that I had a thorn in the foot until later, a few days later, or then you have trouble walking and, all that issues. And I think that is very comparable with some of the conflict issues that we have when, we go for mediation, but we just want to finish up with, okay, so this was the issue. So let's finish up with this, let's arrive at a settlement and let's leave. But we don't open up to find out, okay, so how did this come about? Why did this come about? So I consider, like the aspect of shame, a sort of cultural issue. The other thing is that, again, closely tied to shame is the issue of silence. So that when Vikram has offended me, then I just, go silent and avoid Vikram, as opposed to, trying to sit down with Vikram and trying to address what is it exactly that has happened between the two of us. How can we be able to solve? Something else that perhaps I feel is I could describe again as cultural. Mediation is one thing that encourages the parties to make their decision, take a decision, take a stand concerning the issue. In some contexts, depending on how perhaps people are brought up, then the decision-making can be very difficult. They find it easier to leave the decision-making to somebody else, so that, again, when the decision-making is made by somebody else, it is easier to blame that other person when things don't go right, as opposed to, when you take up an active role within the mediation process and say, this is what I would like, the other party says, this is what they would like, and therefore they own, the mediation process, and they own, whatever it is that outcome that comes out of the process. So I think, to some extent, perhaps it could be because of the way the education system is perhaps geared or structured, and therefore, as you go through, you're not encouraged to be, critical in your thinking. You're not exposed. You're more used to absorbing and being given direction. Therefore, it becomes more difficult for you to be able to, stand up and say, this is what has happened. This, I think, should be addressed like this, and be willing to actually take up your, take up the responsibility of, whatever consequences will come out of the decision that you have arrived at or you have contributed to. The other thing that I would say is I think the issue of selfishness. And I think we people are inherently quite selfish. I don't know if we mediators also consider ourselves to be selfish, but I think it's part of human nature, and it's very easy to always just want to be the one who's right and the one who is benefiting or the one who's the safer one. So again, I think that is, another sort of cultural thing that would, have an impact or affect the mediation process. How have I seen this? When I look at even some of the issues, like I said, for many of us mediators in Kenya, I think mediation is this new friend that we have come across. And so growing in mediation and sometimes watching ourselves. One of my friends who's a mediator as well, Medhat, says that, it tells me that, the carpenter's door is broken. I think that's a sort of an incomplete saying from his home country in Egypt. And when I look at our own context of, mediators in Kenya, then we do have issues that we face. For example, just coming together and being able to form an association, being able to work together, essentially, without being overly competitive in a way that is not, useful to us. But so again, I think mediation, we sometimes, I joke with some of my friends and say that we mediators also need mediators. So I think those are some of the issues that I would refer to as, cultural issues in my, local context, looking at what are some of the things that have been perhaps obstacles or barriers to what I would call an ideal sort of mediation within the country. So what next? I think there is need for a greater public awareness. So helping the people to understand that, there is this thing, this is how we can be able to use it. We don't have to wait until we have active conflict. Like I gave the example of, resources. We can be able to come together and discuss how do we use these resources that we have, these natural resources. So making people aware that there is this particular option and how can we do that? I think the media news is, a good way of being able to do that. I think arts, drama is very powerful in being able to pass across some of these messages. And, just also for us as mediators, just bringing on board people from different disciplines. I think a large number of, for example, in Kenya, I think a large number of the mediators that I know are perhaps have a background in law, a background in psychology, but being able to bring on board people from all, teachers and doctors and, the carpenters. And in Kenya, we have what we call the Juakali people who are artisanal kind of people. So getting everyone to understand, this is an opportunity for us to be able to address our conflict. The other thing, and even to be able to work on our issues, address our issues before they actually blow up and explode. The other thing that I think we need to do is more capacity building for mediators. So this can come in many different forms. So of course, I think, training is a big thing, but I think mediators, once they have been trained as well, those who have been trained, they need, opportunities for mentorship. So a lot of, mentor-mentee relationships need to be encouraged within, mediation, just going out and having spaces where people can be able to sort of practice, address, and acknowledging people who are, doing things that we would consider mediative in a way. I mean, if you're a teacher in a school, you've had some understanding of mediation, then working with the children, teaching them about mediation and, helping those who sort of stand out as almost natural mediators. And then the other thing that I think really needs to be done is advocacy. And I think a lot of people have benefited from mediation, and we need to hear more and more of those stories of those who have benefited from mediation. And as I was preparing this, I was just thinking, to challenge Vikram that perhaps, now we've had the mediators coming, on, perhaps we need to have something where we have those who have benefited from, the mediation process come on and share, this is how it was like for me, and this is the benefit, so that, people can be able to appreciate, people understand that, oh, so this has actually worked for someone that I know. Then people, I think, would be more willing to, take on something like that, documenting, story form, whichever way, just getting people to know that, mediation is an option and we can be able to go for it. And those who have actually benefited from it, I think, would be the best people to say that this thing actually does work. So just in concluding, I'd just like to acknowledge some of the sites where I got some of the information and the images that I used. My contact details very quickly: Sarah Ater, Mediator Sarah Ater, and thank you very much. So that is my quick
So
share.
what we say, Sarah, this is short and sweet. That's what it was. But it's not going to end there. Definitely, there is going to be a discussion. So please, but interesting thing, I mean, basically this whole concept of how in the general social structure, that mediation and the shame aspect, the social pressures and other things, I think that is something definitely we need a lot of discussion on. And I will from now on, look, I've been always, of course, your presentation started with the court annex mediation. A little scare for me that where is she where is she starting from, this should not be at the end also, but it started there. Okay, that's a bit of a worry, but I am totally, of course, a major critic of the court annex mediation and the whole concept. So I mean, that will be a repetition, but now what I picked up is I picked up David's model. Now it's going to be a repetition of what he said about the hybrid model, that the traditional mediators and what we call modern mediators co-mediating, and the issues that come up in terms of communication, that a woman doesn't have the voice in a traditional mediation, that can be balanced out. We've spoken about that yesterday with Virash also from South Africa. So some interesting things are coming up there. But the only thing is that, I mean, the way forward that you were talking about, definitely everything makes sense to me. You've spoken about the teaching them about mediation, the students. I think that interesting thing that you said, and I was just saying it before you came, that the people who have the natural ability, those students who have the natural ability to bring them forth and upskilling, I'm saying they don't need upskilling also. They can teach us. That's the way I look at them. So that bringing them out seems to be the main thing. And also in the communities, those people who have the natural ability, who are already doing it, bringing them out. And how do we do that? So you spoke about Vikram going towards that direction. First of all, we don't have any conflict, okay? So we don't have to resolve any conflict. Vikram does, and why did it have to be Vikram? It could have been David, it could have been Giovanni, it could be Mehmet, but Vikram comes in. But this aspect you said about the user experience, I've already recorded a video. I'm going top downwards. I have to create grassroots at the grassroots, but I'm going topward. So this is a person who's a legal head of a $1 billion company. He's experienced mediation. I have been able to settle a matter which was a few $1 million. He sold out on mediation. So we made that video. I even put it out on social media. Then I deleted the post because what I realized was that the kind of demand that is going to be created, where are those mediators? I could not identify. So that is now the whole process is identifying those with the mediator mindset. That's why you said bring people from other professions. Why is it the whole concept of lawyers coming in? And of course, we spoke about it in the last session with Girija also, that a lawyer comes in as can come in as an expert. Why not get them as, why does he have to do the mediation? She, whatever gender, I have to keep repeating whatever gender. But the fact is that there is a natural ability to help people resolve their disputes. Law is supposed to be fair and just. Even if you don't know the law and you do something fair and just, that should be the law. And if that is not the law, there is some problem with the law. We'll have to challenge the law. So everyone knows the law, according to me. It's just that we think that we need some person who is out there, who's the colonial mindset that we've been given of the court system, that the
Mhm.
court is the place where the dispute resolution happens. No, that's the last place where dispute resolution happens. In countries like that, no dispute resolution happens. People sit there for 20 years and their disputes are not resolved. So I think maybe we have to get that. So this colonial aspect is coming up, Sarah. You'll have to also maybe tell us something about that, because Kenya also has been a colonial place. So we have to, suggest ways to get the people out of that mindset. So what do you think about that?
Um, I think I strongly believe that the awareness is missing because people go to court. I think a lot of people go to court because they think that's the option. That's, I have a problem, so where do I go? I need to go to court. I think the other reason why people go to court, which I've had locally say here, is to teach the other person a lesson. So, I go to court because that's what I know, and I go to court because I want to teach the other person a lesson. So I think it comes back again to us. Do I know what my options are when I have a problem? Do I know what the options cost me in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of, emotional, whatever it is this the best thing for us? And so the question is, where would people get this information from? I don't think this information is readily available. So I think the media has a big role to play in there, and art as well has a very big role to play in there, in just letting people see the diversity of options that exists.
I'll tell you how because I don't know. I mean, I'm trying whatever. So I've got two ways that I'm looking at it. Look, I can't do
Mhm.
everything. I mean, can I do everything?
Yes.
You people have
No,
to
no.
take it. I'm just suggesting. So two things. One is a
Mhm.
dispute resolution counseling center, which can be totally a call center online thing. So anyone sitting anywhere in a village also should have access to that. And there are
Mhm.
people who can guide them. And those people do not they're not getting in touch with the person. They don't have any vested interest of taking up their case or anything like that. They are just there to guide. So whoever has to set up this infrastructure, I mean, is it going to be private parties and you pay a certain registration and you get access to it, or it has to be a free thing? I mean, those are models where people have to get together and do it. I don't leave anything to the government, so I don't even talk about that. So let's see how that functions. So that's a call center concept. The other side, you said the awareness. I have, after speaking to people and also looking at everything, I've understood that just going and telling them about mediation doesn't work, because of the fact that, like I said, it is already something they know. So you're not telling them something new. That's where the whole symposium also, that this is something that you know, it's part of your tradition, your culture. So they know that. Now, how do we get it working? So I've created something called the Peacemakers Collective. So now these people, whoever, I was thinking of law students to start with, but I realized law students are very busy people. We cannot count on them to take it forward. So we have talking about, I'm saying anyone comes in. So now this person goes into any community, any village, wherever. First thing, identifies those who are already doing it. That database gets created. Then they obviously tell people that this is what you should use. And also the person is told about the fact that the court system does, how many years it takes, what you'll go through. Like you said, you teaching you a lesson, you think is you will learn a lesson, that how the cost and time is taken and your peace of mind goes. That so that teaching someone a lesson will be, you'll learn a lesson. So this person brings that out to them. If there is a law, like in India, India has a law, and a very good law, where a person sitting in a village can get a court decree. That settlement agreement is as good as a court decree. So tell them about the law. Now the problem is reaching out to the other side. That is always a challenge for in a dispute. So this person, the kind of person we need is a peacemaker, like I said, reaches out to the other side, but is not talking about the dispute, is about the nicer things, that you should whatever get together, you should, this doesn't work. So that person gets the other person to understand that yes, mediation is a process. The person has already got the database of the mediators. The matchmaking is something that it can suggest, but finally open out the database to the parties. Look, and it is not just the person's database. Now we have mediators, these peacemakers everywhere. So we have a large database which is getting created. And with the whole online concept, that we'll put little clips of those people online. I am doing it on a larger scale. I'm saying I have conversations like you are coming on that show, they're in conversation with a beautiful mind. Those are larger conversations to tell people that mediators are special people and the wonderful people, and these are, you have a face to a mediator. So like you said, I mean, to be suddenly introduced to mediation and mediators was a new thing to you. Let people be able to even we have these conversations, get to know them better. But for the other people, that database that these peacemakers create, we'll put smaller clips. So because look, it's a very personal thing, mediation. You have to trust the mediator, and when you hear the mediator and you see the person, that creates that trust. The person can say, yes, I want this person's mediator. So they choose between themselves. So now this peacemaker coordinates that process also. So actually that whole, be it online, if it's this technology which is say a Zoom thing, so that person handles that aspect. If it has to happen through WhatsApp, gets the conference call going, whatever technology you have to use, if they're emails, coordinating that. So this person coordinates the entire process, which on a larger scale, there are startups in India which are doing, creating that platform, online platforms. But I'm saying at this stage, those people are not ready or don't have to go through that, because it's a very personal thing to get them together. So I am looking at that model there. So the awareness goes out, the whole process gets coordinated. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that is a good way of going about it. And as you were speaking, it just also reminded me of what I have seen happen in Kenya. So, of course, over the last few years, that we've had I would say an explosion of training of mediation, people in mediation. So, large numbers of people, getting trained in mediation. Some, of course, go into it. Others, hang around for a bit and then feel like, no, this it doesn't make a lot of sense. But one of the things that I have seen is, sort of the community centers, uh, uh, some mediators coming together and trying to put together community centers to be able to serve people in the community, the mediation issues and all that. And it brings back, I think, an issue that has been talked about, the issue of compensation for mediators. Because again, when starting off, then there's the issue of, okay, so how is this covered? Who pays for this? What will the mediator eat? Because at the end of the day, I mean, like you can't stay there, a whole day, and perhaps you have children, you have obligations that you need to meet. So I think there's all kinds of things, and it's good to have these conversations, because when we have these conversations, then our minds open up and we think about how then can we actually be able to address some of those issues. So what I've seen is I would say, fortunately or unfortunately, some centers, people come together, it sort of starts, and then, because I think the other thing is, for many mediators who go for the training, the expectation is, I'll go out there and get people, matters to mediate, and perhaps I'll be rich overnight or in a few, and then you go out there and you discover, oh, I don't even have the matters, and that's why I think a lot of then mediators then fall back on the court annex mediation. So there's a lot of opportunity outside the court. We just need to figure out how do we explore this opportunity in a sustainable way.
Look, the court system is going to finish the profession, and in some places, even before it starts. So we are very sure we are fighting something out. We're fighting it out. If we have to exist, we will have to be able to get that whole concept going in a manner where the court annex mediation center has to stop. I mean, I've been speaking about it, so I won't repeat it, because obviously it's the same thing I will keep saying. But that is where the worry is, because I'm a live example of a person, a senior mediator in India, setting up a private mediation center with a few lawyers, doing very well, had to shut it down because in their city a court annex mediation center was opened. So they are going to finish us off. I mean, they're not going to let us work. And I, being someone who is only a mediator, I keep saying, every time a free mediation happens, you have affected my livelihood. People cannot take it up as the full-time profession. I've taken it up. I know there is a demand. I've told you right now, I do high value commercials, so it's a different thing, but that's the way I can get that money to be able to do this activity of promotion of mediation. But I'm saying there is so much demand there. This one user experience creates an explosion of matters. I can't do all of them. So how do we get good people getting in? So compensation is available. Okay, people understand. Today, luckily, the court is not the best place for people to go. They understand. So they would not even, I am saying they would not want to touch the court system if they get an alternative. But in terms of what the compensation is going to be, so what I started was that, okay, you're not committing a fee. We will go through the process. Whatever you feel at the end of the day in terms of value added, whatever, you will pay what you want. So it's not coming to you free. And I'm telling you, people are so fair. You've added value to an extent, that peace of mind that you've given there. And these are matters which are pending in court. Can you imagine the matters you're sitting for 14 years in court, and another 10 years maybe? I mean, imagine what the situation is, and that can get resolved. Peace of mind. What is the value of peace of mind? But on the other end, how does a person value peace of mind? So if he has to compensate the mediator, how do they do it? So I am saying that right now, let's give a certain time duration and say, let's leave it to the people. They will be fair. Your household will run perfectly. There will be no issue. But let them experience it. And the right people have to be there for them to experience. One wrong experience which is happening in the court system. I have a particular clip that I show people, not on public thing, on private meetings, about a court mediator saying the mediator will decide. So can you imagine what is happening in those rooms in the court mediation centers? He comes in with that whole concept, and thrice in that interview he says, mediator will decide, mediator will decide. So the what very nicely we say mandatory mediation and everything, you are giving it free. You are the person who's doing it comes with a totally different mindset. He's going to decide because that's the only way he looks at dispute resolution. Deciding, someone is deciding. The parties can never decide, because obviously we have created a mindset, a psyche where parties cannot even think that they will decide. So they think court has sent this person. First of all, why are you appointing a mediator for them? They have to appoint a mediator themselves. They have to, the whole concept of mediation, they're finishing that whole concept of. So I think that, so compensation, according to Ms. Sara, is not an issue. It's just starting them off, give them that experience. Think that it is just business development. Okay, I'm doing business development. I have to give free samples. No, but these are not free samples. You try the product. If it works for you, you pay what you like. If it doesn't work for you, maybe I'm not a good mediator. I just can't work. Or maybe you're not the right fit for them. So you don't give up. I'm not saying that you give up, but I'm saying maybe not the right fit for them. Who knows? Why should everyone, they think that, okay, one mediator can work for me? No, they can have different styles, they can have different things, different expectations. So because there is this whole facilitative model that the US is throwing around the world, some cultures might not want the facilitative model. So why should we push that on them? They might want an evaluative part of it. So we are trying to, in some way, define a process which doesn't need definition. It is a very broad definition, which I gave out in the theme. It's a very broad definition, and we have to be able to look at that. Community mediation, look, I'll tell you, sort of my issue is that I think individuals have so much capability to do things on a large scale. I don't look at any centers. Centers discount things because 5 people sitting together will discount each other. Most of the time. Look, I've been able to put up 80 plus speakers from 40. There are now going to be 40 plus countries. If I can put that up individually on my own, everything. So this is why I'm doing it. I'm to tell you, yes, you can do it. You should be doing similar symposia. You should be getting people together. So that's how the network grows. I've always been repeating this, that for me, my 1,000, which I can get together, if they reach out to 1,000 people with a mediator mindset, get them together. We have 1 million people out there, but
Yeah.
I have to get the right people together because I know you, when you go out, will get the right person involved. So we have 1 million people out there. We will change things. So we just have to start, get the right people together. Look, for me, it's not that everyone who comes together with me is someone I can take forward. So I also keep saying that I remove people from the network because I have to, it's a refining process for me.
Yeah.
People might say, who are you to do it? What I am doing it? Yes, I am someone to do it. I can identify people whom I want to identify. You do it on your own, not an issue, but I have to get my right. I'm saying 1,000. Let's see how many it grows to. If you got almost 100 people in this symposium, although not all of them are going to be people that I take forward. Not for me. I'm also talking to them. I'm also seeing what their mindset is and whether they fit well in how I'm looking at it. So I'm saying that as an individual, Sarah, you can change a lot of things individually. Community mediation centers, I am telling you, the US, we talk about 40, 45 years. In those years, if they've only been able to set up 400 community mediation centers, that's the statistics I got from Google search. 400 mediation centers, 400,000 matters in the country. 100 million cases going into courts. Something fundamentally wrong in that system. We might do it differently. I'm not saying we will be doing the same thing, we'll make the same mistakes, but I'm saying that let's not count on a structure, because at the end of the day, in that structure also, that mediator is paid by the state. So why do I keep saying, why should a taxpayer be funding someone's dispute? Why? You are fighting and the state has to fund you. What is the court annex mediation center? A court, it takes, is an infrastructure. There is time spent in that. The judge has there is a opportunity cost. There's a time cost on that whole session that happens with the judge. Is that going to be free? Court fees is refunded if you settle the matter. State gets nothing. We are funding people's disputes. We should not encourage that. Oh, we are encouraging to have a dispute, come here, mediation for free, court fee not to be paid. Why? Just for one backlog that you have to clear because you are inefficient. You are going to spoil an entire profession for life. So a lot of factors have working together, and we have to keep discussing this. But that's the negative part of it. The positive part is there are people like you out there, and they have very good intentions, and we will take this forward. Whatever whatever the right people out there will give the best user experience. People will value it. It will happen. So, Sarah, if there is more, yes, because we can request Mehmet, but if you want to give your final words, whatever, your decision. Is there something more? Please.
No, I would, if any of the participants have a question or a comment,
No,
I would
no,
be.
They don't have option. They don't have that option. They don't have the option.
Oh,
They
they
can
don't have
put
the option.
they can put it in the
Okay.
chat. They can put it in the chat. I can take it up because there's no
Okay.
time for that. There's no time for that.
Okay.
Absolutely. They put it
Okay.
up. They
Okay.
know Giovanni and David know that. Mehmet
Yeah.
doesn't know that. Mehmet, if there's anything, please put it.
Okay.
Anyway, in
Those are
1 minute,
the
his time starts after 1 minute. So it's his show after that. So
Okay.
any final words that you want to give
Uh,
us?
no, I think for me, what like I said in the beginning, mediation is this friend that I found, and I think it's a, I don't know whether it's a he or a she. They are a very good friend, and for me, I think there's a lot of opportunity for me to work with mediation in my work in promoting conservation and sustainability, and that's where I am headed.
Because I'm telling you, I don't know whether you saw what Ken Cloke had written when you read that about the climate change aspect of it and
Mm-hmm.
how mediators should be part of that, those dialogues and all that
Mm-hmm.
aspect. So on the larger scale, there is lots to do, lots
Mm-hmm.
to do. I mean,
Yeah.
that part of it, but then the right people have to be there. Finally, it comes down to that aspect that you can say mediators, but are the right people having those dialogues, having those conversations with the people? So I think we need to also look at that. Let's not rush into it. Let's not rush
Mm-hmm.
into it up till we don't get those million out there, which is not going to be. It happened very fast, Sarah. I'm telling you,
Mm-hmm.
100 here. Where is 1,000 can happen like that? So your 1,000 you have to
Okay.
start working on, and
Yeah.
let's put them together. So thank you very much, Sarah. Wonderful talking to you, and we are continuing this conversation on that show. Lots to talk about there. We'll have lots of time there. So thank you very much.